Patricia Brett is an American artist who transitioned from a career in architecture after studying at Ohio State and Yale. Her story isn't your typical story of someone who has braved the world, returning home to share her experiences and gifts. It's one of extreme versatility in numerous artistic and creative medium that includes stone, plaster, paperwork, and printmaking, with a particular focus on bas-relief explorations that blur the lines between sculpture and printmaking. Hers is a story of reinvention of an artist who has moved seamlessly across disciplines, mastering each with a quiet but undeniable force. But Brett isn't most people we've come across or discovered. Her curiosity pulled her toward new forms of expression, some of which she has always felt drawn to. Notably, Brett is the founder of Veronica Brett, a luxury swimwear line designed for breast cancer survivors, turning creativity into something deeply personal and profoundly impactful. And while her work has been featured in Harper's Bazaar and O Magazine, she remains, in many ways, an enigma. Curious, we decided to meet with Brett, going behind the scenes to discover just who Patricia Brett is, architect, designer, turned visual artist.
Studio space. After you. Hi, I'm Patricia Brett. I am a visual artist, a printmaker, and a sculptor here in Cleveland, Ohio. And this is my studio. We are here at the Twist Drill building. I'm part of a group of artists at something called Artists of the Twist. There are 16 of us. And I recently moved back to Northeast Ohio after 32 years in New York City. So to have a large light-filled studio here is an incredible luxury. I was making art at my kitchen table in New York and having to clear it every night before dinner. All I ever wanted to do since I was a little girl was to be an artist. But I came from a very blue-collar family in Northeast Ohio, and that wasn't exactly encouraged. So I did the next best thing, and I studied architecture. I did my undergrad in architecture at Ohio State and my Master of Architecture at Yale. And architecture allowed me to draw, to use my creativity, and to hopefully be able to support myself. Work is really about materials, it's about processes, it's about form, it's about light and shadow. So some people will ask me, well, did you regret all of those years as an architect, all of that time spent? And I'm like, well, actually, no. Even though it was a difficult profession, I learned so much, and it really trained my eye and helped me to create what I'm creating now in a lot of ways. But before I made the leap to visual artist from architecture, I actually had a middle life, and I was a fashion designer. In 2010, I created what was the first line of designer swimwear for breast cancer survivors. My dad lost 3 of his sisters to breast cancer, and I myself tested positive for a BRCA1 gene. And with my own experience and that of several family members, I decided that there had to be better options for women who have had breast cancer. Before I created Veronica Brett, most of the options were medical apparel. They weren't fashion, and you could really only buy them in hospitals. So my goal was to create a line of swimwear that solved all the unique issues for women who've undergone a mastectomy, but still looked sexy and beautiful, so that women could really live their lives just as much as possible as they had before. And so I actually have some of those initial sketches from the swimwear line. And it really took off. I was doing a road trip with my sister and my niece. My niece was getting ready to have her risk-reducing bilateral mastectomy. And on the road trip, she was venting a little about how ugly the bras were and how ugly the swimsuits were. And so this little light bulb went off, and I just thought, if I can design a building, surely I can design a better swimsuit. And so I went back home and I started sketching and made some prototypes, and one thing led to another. And after 2 years, I had a product on the market. And at the peak, Veronica Brett was in 20 stores in 3 countries, including on Shopbop, which is pretty cool because that's a very high-end retail site. And Veronica Brett actually is named for my dad's youngest sister. My dad lost 3 of his sisters to breast cancer, and I decided to honor that generation of women by naming the line after my Aunt Veronica. And in August 2010, I had a very cool profile in Oprah magazine. Harper's Bazaar picked up the story. And so I think that this family story plus a really beautiful high-end fashion line is what gave it a lot of leverage. But I realized after a certain point that that wasn't really what I wanted to be doing with my life. And I had a little bit of a existential crisis on my 50th birthday, and I just realized I really knew that what I wanted to do was to make art. And so my lawyer, who was assisting me with the swimwear business, suggested that I, rather than close the business, just take a little time off and go do a sculpture class. So I enrolled in a sculpture class at the National Academy in New York, and I got my hands in clay. And I was actually making, my first sculpture was a Buddha inspired by this Buddha at the Yale University Art Gallery in New Haven that I used to visit on a regular basis when I was there. And once I had my hands in the clay, it was pure bliss. And I knew that making art was what I really needed to do with my life. So it took me about 1.5 years to wind down the business. And then once I did, I enrolled in a full-time stone carving class at the Art Students League. And I actually have here some of my stone carving tools because I'm using them to cut slate for an upcoming project. Plastic instructor named Seiji Saito from Japan. And after studying stone carving, I studied printmaking for 1.5 years. And on the weekends, I would take whatever workshop I could take. Ink painting, watercolor. I was like a kid in a candy store trying to make up for lost time. All those years that I couldn't make art, I was trying to cram it all in. And here I've got a bunch of slate. My father was a sheet metal worker and a roofer. And I'm preparing for an upcoming show at the Sculpture Center in August. And the show is going to be really autobiographical. It's essentially about me and my life and coming back to Northeast Ohio, but this time as an artist. When I left, I left as an architect, someone who always wanted to be an artist. I went through these 3 different careers, and now that I'm back and I'm finally doing that thing that I felt I was called to do, how does that journey show up in my art? And this piece, which is a large cast paper relief, I created in October 2023 during a residency at the Morgan Paper Conservatory here in Cleveland. And it's a large sheet of paper that I made with a lot of assistance, cast over a wax drawing. And this piece is really going to be the jumping off piece for my show at the Sculpture Center. And that show is going to have 3 distinct parts. It's going to have a section about my life as an architect, a section about my life as a fashion designer, and finally a section about my life as a visual artist. And this is kind of a very crude, rough sketch, but the idea being that in architecture, architecture is about defining space. So I wanted to create 3 panels, point, line, and plane, which hang from the ceiling and really define space. And then there would be 3 sculptural objects in the center of the space, which almost really represent my aunts, the 3 aunts I lost to breast cancer. And for those sculptural objects, they're going to be treated more like forms that you can walk around in space, almost like the idea of, seeing a runway model coming towards you, that you would actually walk around and be able to experience this sculpture, these objects. And for that portion of the show, what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the original swimwear patterns from my swimwear line, and I am tracing them into paper, these very large sheets of cast paper. I'm drawing around them with a traditional sewer's tool for marking, drawing around them, and then I'm going to basically let the paper deform, similar to the way in which cancer kind of warps us, changes us, deforms our lives. My last project as an architect, I did an art gallery building in Manhattan, in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood. And working on that project and working with the gallerist and being around the art world and the artists there, it really made me realize what I was missing and what I wanted to do. But I wasn't quite ready to get there just yet. I knew that I wanted to leave architecture, but I had this kind of midway stop of, wait, I have this idea for these swimsuits and somebody has to do it.
After an inspiring meeting with Brett at her Midtown studio, we made our way to the artist archives of the Western Reserve and University Circle, where some of her work is currently on display. And with her upcoming self-curated show at the Sculpture Center, we were given an exclusive look at the space, where she'll showcase large-scale paper relief installations, stone cuttings, and other striking visual pieces. Curating is yet another of Brett's many talents. She's previously curated for KINK Contemporary Gallery in Cleveland and other spaces during her time in New York. One of her standout projects brought together 7 printmakers, each exploring texture, spatial relationships, and dimensionality in unique ways. In many ways, you can say, it was an extension of her own fascination with paper relief. Only this time, she created an interactive experience, a platform for other artists to push boundaries and showcase their work.